I believe alt season is going to be making a comeback in some way, shape, or form in 6 to 12 months from now. It's going to be probably a bit different to what we usually see in terms of an alt season, like back in 2017, 2021. But I think some form of alt season is coming. And I want to talk about how you guys can capitalize on this. I have 1 or 2 questions to go over before we get into alt season. Over the past 18 months, so a year and a half, how have you guys done so far? I'm very curious. Because we're in an interesting point in the market where a lot of coins are still in a massive profit, like Bitcoin, Solana, but I feel like most people haven't made money. So are you, 1, you've lost a lot of money, lost a little bit of money, around the same, made a bunch of money, made heaps of money? Where are you? Personally, I'm at number 5, and I'm just going to shut a door quickly. All right, so you guys are saying 3, 3, 4, 4, 3. Okay, so most people have not really made anything, or they've lost. Interesting. Very interesting. A pretty mixed bag. 3. Okay, so most people are, wow, there's not even a single person who's made life-changing gains. That's pretty crazy. That's really crazy. I might be the only person in this entire thing who's number 5, which is sort of weird. I thought there'd be at least one other person here who's crushed it. 4. Okay. So by the sounds of it, most people have either not made any money or they've lost money, which is honestly not surprising, to be honest. So one more question. I just want to collect a little bit more data so I can make the information in this as relevant for you guys as possible. Why are you guys here? Are you down bad, stopped paying attention to the market? Because realistically, like, the amount of people that sign up to this webinar is half the amount that signed up to the last one. And the last one was when the market was really hot. So realistically, like, if you're here on this presentation, you're probably a smarter individual because you're actually paying attention to crypto at the period of time when nobody else is really paying attention. And that is the most opportune time. So are you down bad? Number 1, unsure about market, still paying some attention to the market, completely neutral, slightly optimistic, bullish. Personally, I'm 4 or 5 on this one. Okay, 5 bullish. Okay, interesting. So most of you guys are pretty bullish. I mean, realistically, if any of you were voting for 1, you probably wouldn't be on this webinar. All the people who would have voted for 1 are not smart enough or dedicated enough to spend an hour educating themselves on how to make money. Cool. One more question. What's your current exposure? So do you have less than 10K, between 10 to 100K, 100 to 300, 300 to mil plus? I'm personally obviously number 5, but I'm curious how you guys are sitting. Because I think even if you have less than 10K, I think you could do really well this bull run. I think you could do quite well if you do well during this alt season. But it depends. If you have like $500, probably not. So looking like you've got a bunch of, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so most people have less than 1, 2, 3. Okay, most people have less than 100K. That's honestly to be expected. Cool. Thanks for sharing that information. So yeah, as you can see, the market's been pretty rough. Most people have either not made any money or they've lost money. And really only like one dude I saw put the number 5 in terms of like they've made life-changing money. So even though we've had all these meme coins go 100x, Bitcoin's at new all-time highs, most people haven't really made money. And if my thesis that I'm going to break down in this video plays out, I think we are again on the precipice of a pretty big opportunity to make massive gains during some form of an alt season. And I don't think this alt season that I see coming is going to happen again for another 3 to 4 years after this. Okay. So I think you need to position yourself correctly. And honestly, the fact that most of you guys haven't made money or you've lost money is a sign of where we are in the market cycle. If I hosted this webinar and all of you guys said you're in profit, that would be a top signal. The fact that it's the opposite is a very good sign. So sort of like I said before, I'm not expecting a traditional alt season. I think you can't just blindly buy any coin and make money. That's not what I'm expecting. Because of the DEX dominance with thousands of coins, and you can basically get exposure to all these coins within your wallet. And that movement away from a centralized exchange where it might only have like 200 coins on it. And of course, the total crypto market cap being just so much bigger. I just don't expect that traditional alt season. What I expect is a rotational game of a large pool of capital chasing a small sum of new coins, specifically in the AI and meme coin sector. And to put it more simply, I expect many coins to run from tiny valuations to multiple billions, sort of what we saw last year during certain periods, from the spillover effect of profits from the majors when they rally, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, after QE has already kicked off in the market. So as you and I both know, positioning yourself at the right time is the difference between making it big or losing everything. It doesn't matter what coin you buy. If you buy it at the wrong time, you're going to lose all your money. So it's all about the timing and the positioning. Okay. And so my strategy, as I talk about in my latest YouTube video that I posted today, is bet big at the right time, do nothing for a few months, and watch your portfolio multiply. That's it's a very simple strategy. I'm not trying to teach you guys in this to do technical analysis or day trading or anything like that. And this approach of betting big, doing nothing, waiting is how I've made most of my money from the last 2 bull runs. And it's gotten me to near 8 figures. Okay. Cool. And that's sort of repeating what we just said. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. So as you guys have probably seen, gold has been going crazy. We're going to talk about that and how the gold pump is actually a sign for the next Bitcoin boom. We're going to talk about the 10 steps that lead to an alt season. And these 10 steps are what led to the last one. And I believe we're at about step 4 of these 10 steps before we get into the next one. The exact reasoning and thesis for why I believe alt season is going to happen in 6 to 12 months. The top sectors that you should be focusing on. So we're going to talk about why meme coins, why AI, what type of AI coins to focus on, and then what to do to make sure you're fully prepared. And yeah, this isn't hopium. I don't host this webinar as just some random thing just to try to sell some shit. The timing of this webinar is done because of the insights that I've had over the past few weeks that I feel are really worth talking about. The timing of when I host these webinars is when I feel like there's something really worth discussing that is important for you guys to understand. And that is obviously today's topic of the return of alt season. So at the end of this training, I'm also going to offer a chance to work one-on-one with me directly for anyone who's interested to help maximize their returns as well. And that's a totally optional thing. So realistically, it only takes 1 or 2 big plays to make life-changing money. One play alone, I made over 400,000 US from. It was Toshi. And again, Toshi, you buy it once. I held it for a year and a half, sold a little bit along the way, and then you make a bunch of money. That's just to give you an idea of the strategy. And as you and I both know, you can make massive returns from these sort of hands-off strategies. Here's a bunch of testimonials. And yeah, I don't want to talk about in this presentation, in all the others, I emphasize this, and I'm going to emphasize it again. I don't want to talk about trading with leverage or becoming exit liquidity, following Twitter calls, or holding 50 different coins, staring at the charts, or draining your bank account to zero from meme coins. I want to talk about the strategy of, again, hands-off, low-time investment, sort of strategies that you can make money without having to spend all day on crypto. Because nearly all of the whales that I know personally that are up 7 or 8 figures, none of them made their wealth doing that stuff. I mean, there is a couple guys who've made money from sort of day trading. I know one guy who's made a few $1 million from day trading, but it's not with leverage like a degenerate, right? You have to understand the nuance here. Trading works, but it doesn't work like this. Following influencers, but it doesn't work like this, right? Buying altcoins works, but it doesn't work when you buy 50 of them, right? Meme coins work, but it doesn't work if you don't have a strategy. So what I'm teaching you guys tonight is obviously the altcoin season related topic, but I'm also going to go over some constant and universal principles that anyone can follow to make long-term wealth from crypto. So let's get into the training. Why is crypto going parabolic in 6 to 12 months? There's 3 things. Number one, we're nearing the beginning of monetary and fiscal stimulus with the Fed cutting rates and beginning QE to handle the economic consequences of Trump tariffs on China and the world. I believe, and we're going to talk about this soon, that in the next 3 to 6 months, there is a decent chance that things begin to break as we see the impacts of tariffs actually begin to impact the economy in a real way. Because up until now, all this tariff talk, it hasn't affected anything because there's obviously time between the cargo ships leaving China, coming to the US, and then getting into the trucks, and then getting into the stores, and then selling out, right? That's a multi-month process. So you don't feel the impacts of tariffs. And I think as we feel those impacts, we're going to be heading into potentially the need for this stimulus that created the last alt season. We're also going to talk about the fractal patterns of prior alt seasons and how they're all sort of lining up again. And also, when you look at Bitcoin's fundamental backdrop, I don't think it's ever been better than it is right now. And even from an on-chain perspective, from a technical perspective, looking at funding data and different things, like Bitcoin looks very strong. And I think it has the underlying strength to catapult it once we see a couple of these things unlock on the lower interest rate and QE side of things. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what has gold got to do with an alt season? What has gold got to do with crypto? So let me share some context to understand this. Crypto bull runs are characterized by like 2 key events, 2 distinct moments. There's the Bitcoin rally, where Bitcoin is leading the market and the rest of the market is trying to catch up and it just can't. And Bitcoin is the face of everything. It's getting all the media attention. And then you have the movement away from Bitcoin to alts, people running up the risk curve, buying the higher beta assets to try to outperform Bitcoin. And it doesn't happen in this perfect, it's all Bitcoin and it's all altcoins sort of way, and it is moving away from that. But that is still the sort of 2 distinct moments that are occurring. And if you look at gold and the gold sort of industry, the gold market, the same thing happens, but in the inverse. So when we enter the most risk-on environment, it's Bitcoin and then altcoins. When we enter the most risk-off environment, it's gold and then gold miners. And the actual, like, the companies that mine gold that you can buy publicly on exchanges in the traditional world, they are the sort of higher beta asset to gold that altcoins are to Bitcoin. And to just give you an oversimplification of what that looks like, this is obviously not designed to be an accurate look of how it plays out every time, but just to oversimplify from a visual perspective, this red box is when the market is risk off, and then the green box is when the market is risk on. The first line, this yellowy orange one, this is gold, okay? And then, so what you see is gold rallies, and then you have miners rallying alongside it, and miners tend to, outperform gold and sort of are going up after gold in the same way that altcoins go up after Bitcoin. And this is during the risk-off period of the market. And then in the inverse, when we're in the risk-on, Bitcoin is going up, and then alts are outperforming after Bitcoin has topped. Again, disclaimer, this is not to give you like the exact science, it's just to help you visualize the concept. And if you look at this chart here, you can see the gold miners ETF. And you can see that every time the gold miners ETF hit a peak over the past, this is like 7 years, it was just 6 months after that we saw Bitcoin dominance fall off a cliff and lead to alt season. So you can sort of see the concept playing out here. Gold miners top out because the risk off sort of movement in gold and miners sort of has occurred. And then when risk off hits a peak, the peak happens because obviously the Fed has pivoted. They're supporting the economy the risk is back on, stocks are moving up, and that causes capital to go from the risk off to the risk on, and they move from things like gold and stuff, not necessarily moving from gold to altcoins, but you can understand the sort of the risk tolerance is moving from gold-like assets to risky-like assets like crypto. And it might not necessarily be this peak, but we're heading towards a peak again in miners where it's marking that beginning of that risk-on sort of environment. Not that we haven't had risk-on environments at the moment, but the shift that we're looking for that leads to an alt season is sort of getting near. And if you look at the distance between the different times we had Bitcoin dominance drop off a cliff and an alt season, it's about the same as what we have had sort of now between these two. And you can also see, if you compare gold to the SPX, so the stock market, right, one of the biggest indexes, during COVID, when we had the COVID crash, gold obviously was the safe haven asset. Everything went down when COVID happened, but gold went down the least. So when you pair it against the stock market, it obviously went up. But you can see like gold as a risk-off asset was the best performing when the market was going risk-off, right? We had the crash because of COVID, things began to break. And then the Fed comes in, QE, lowering interest rates, helping support the economy. And that whole next year is marked by the return to risk, where stocks were the biggest stock index was outperforming the price movement of gold, because this was when they turned the printers back on. Okay. And you can see here, gold has been rallying pretty hard, harder than the stock market has, because of fears of tariffs, what that means for the broader economy, people sort of not wanting as much risk exposure to the US market and moving to a more global asset. And obviously, billions of dollars of inflows of capital from China trying to sort of get into a safer asset like gold, because they can't get exposure to crypto, it's banned, but they can buy gold in China. Okay, and you can see that if you guys have a look at the data of of volume for gold in China, it's gone to like all-time high levels. I don't have the chart in front of me. I should have put it on here, but yeah, it was very interesting. And if we see a peak here, similar to what we've had here, what this is marking essentially is a shift away from risk-off assets of like gold to risk-on like stocks, crypto, etc. And also one more point, this chart is a visualization of demand for safety versus risk. I think that's the best way that I can put this. You can see that we've had the demand for safety, and now if this goes back down, we're now viewing an increase in the demand for risk. Okay? So what are the 10 steps that play out considering this information that lead to an alt season? Well, step one is gold pumps on recession fears. So you can see that we've already had this play out. This is gold pumping against stocks. The second step is gold miners play catch up as they sort of leverage gold. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't have to happen every time, but this is just the general concept, right? Because sometimes the miners are rallying exactly against gold at the same pace. Step three, recession fears hit their peak levels. People are very scared about, the economy, about things could be like tariffs is causing problems with, oh my God, am I going to be able to go and buy all these things that I used to be able to buy now that there's all these tariffs, and maybe China just stops shipping things to the US, right? People start freaking out about this sort of stuff. And then things begin to break. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 3 to 6 months, we have some sort of a mass panic where millions of Americans are running into stores to buy and stock up on a bunch of items that they don't think they're going to be able to get in a month or two from now, when these items are just not coming into America in the demand to really get it for everyone. Like, imagine toilet paper. Imagine it. I don't know where it comes from, but let's just imagine hypothetically it's all from China. If you don't think you're going to get toilet paper in a month because of all the fears around tariffs, it only takes that self-fulfilling prophecy of people front-running others panicking that can kick off the panic, right? People panic before others panic, creating the panic that might not have even happened in the first place. And I think we see that not now, but maybe in a month, 2, 3 months, 4 months from now, begin to kick off, right? And that's when things begin to break, I think, when people start to panic. And then once we have that sort of inflection point of, okay, this is as bad as things we're going to let get, we're stepping in, right? The Fed's stepping in. Sort of like during COVID, where they didn't do much for a while. It was sort of like, oh, it's bad, but we'll just watching. And then suddenly things break and they step in. Okay, we're stepping in now. And then monetary and fiscal stimulus starts, QE and lower rates. Gold tops because that marks the shift from, that puts the bottom in on people's fear, right? Gold tops, minus top, and then the risk on environment begins. And then obviously that's when Bitcoin pumps, and once Bitcoin's going up, and then alts pump, and that's where sort of alt season comes in. And something else to keep in mind is that the timeline for this playing out is the only variable that I'm not sure on. So when I say 6 to 12 months from now is when this plays out, it's sort of a rough timeline. It could be shorter, it could be longer. It really depends on how long it takes for sort of this everything related to tariffs to actually impact America, because there's the first order impact of tariffs, and then there's the second and third order impacts of tariffs. And I think the second and third order impacts have just not been priced in at all. People are just so oblivious to what could be coming in 3 to 6 months from now in that regard, right? Like Trump puts a 90-day pause on tariffs with China, and then the market rallies almost back to all-time highs. So the market has just completely disregarded the fact that tariffs are still coming and the impact that they're going to have in the future. And I think they've overpriced in how good the delay is, how helpful the delay is. And so, yeah, like I said, I think we're at step 4 of 10. All we need is the economy to get into a position where the Fed provides stimulus through lowering rates and starting QE. Because remember, Bitcoin is driven by monetary debasement and liquidity. It's not driven by economic growth and consumer spending, right? The stock market is you investing into companies, and these companies need to sell things, right? The more products they sell, the more revenue they make, the better the company they are. That's like the underlying valuation of a stock. In regards to Bitcoin, it's about how much liquidity is there in the world. Is that amount of dollars in the world increasing at a faster or slower rate, right? Is there an excess of capital looking for safety from inflation, right? Is there an increasing amount of monetary debasement occurring, or are they printing less money, right? This is the main driving factors for Bitcoin. You want to look at the increasing or decreasing amount of liquidity and debasement. I think that's one of the most important things to be looking at. So what's going to create the conditions that force a Fed pivot? And I want you guys to let me know in the chat if everything's making sense so far. Let me know if this is interesting. Let me know if you're learning something. Let me know if it's all making sense. As I take a quick drink break. Making sense? Hope I'm not sounding like a crazy conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't care about these conspiracies. I just look at the data that sort of makes sense. So I'm glad that you guys are learning and you're finding it insightful. So what will create the conditions that force a Fed pivot? We sort of talked about this, but the answer is Trump and his tariffs crusade. And I want you guys to look at some data here. I'm just going to make sure that this is popping up on the screen before I go into this. Okay. I don't think it's showing. All right, I'm just trying to bring up another presentation. Not sure why that's not showing. Maybe it is. Oh, it is showing. Cool. So if you look here, this is a report made by Apollo. Don't know who they are, but they're sort of they're a management firm. They've managed capital, right? And they put a bunch of information here about how they see a recession playing out. And you can see here the different stages that happen in a supply chain for items to get delivered to the US from China, right? There's 20 to 40 days transit time, right? From departing from China to the US. And then there's the truck rail transit times to cities, right? And then, so there's this whole process of the timeline that it actually takes for a tariff to impact the real world. And this is what I talk about with second and third order consequences. When Trump announces tariffs, what's the first thing that it does? Well, it lowers the stock market because people panic. Well, what's the second order effect of a tariff? Well, there's going to be less shipping containers sent from China to the US because some companies are just going to not want to sell because it's too expensive. If less container ships go to the US, well, that's going to decrease the demand for the trucks to be delivering items. And what does that do? Well, that leads to layoffs in the trucking industry. What does that do? So that's sort of the viewing of things from second, third, fourth order consequence. And that's how you make money in markets, by sort of forward looking multiple steps ahead, multiple consequences ahead for each action, because there's a ripple effect of every single decision that's made. And if they basically presented a bunch of data here, so I want to show you guys it. Sharpest decline in earnings outlook since 2020. New orders collapsing. US corporate capex plans. I don't know what all these data sets mean, but you can see here, Fed manufacturing surveys, price paid versus PCE. New orders in contraction territory in March will decline further in April. New orders, you can see all the data is sort of inventories rising rapidly before tariffs took effect. Truck sales down significantly in March. So you can see it's sort of collapsing here a little bit. CEO confidence declining. Logistics managers index declining. China to US trade coming to a stop. China to US trade coming to a stop. Container freight rates falling. Consumer sentiment declining across income groups. Consumers very worried about losing their jobs. Record high share of consumers think business conditions are worsening. Consumer inflation expectations. Consumer expectations to business conditions. Consumers getting more worried about their jobs. Fewer Europeans traveling to the US. Foreign tourists declining. And sort of all the data sort of goes on and on. Declining cash purchase of homes, that's pretty big. Cool. And it goes on to talk about a trade war as a stagflation shock where stocks go down and rates go up. But anyway, the point is that tariffs are impacting the economy in many ways that you sort of don't see unless you look deeper. And I think that is what's going to create the Fed pivot, in my opinion. And yeah, you can see that there's a number of different data sets pointing to a recession in like 2 to 6 months from now. And yeah, we sort of already talked about this point. And yeah, we already talked about this point as well. Second and third order consequences. If tariffs aren't massively de-escalated, Trump setting up the US for a black swan scenario, which leads to lower rates and turning QE back on. Keep in mind, this doesn't have to happen, but this is just the scenario that I'm seeing sort of play out. And yeah, true opportunity lies in anticipating the inevitable QE that follows economic contraction, the exact catalyst that sent Bitcoin to its previous all-time highs in the last cycle. So let's look at Bitcoin's fundamental backdrop and why it has sort of never been better. So you can see here the total inflows that have come into IBIT, the total amount of capital that they are managing is at all-time highs. And we had the second biggest weekly inflows for this ETF index, or might be the third biggest or second biggest, but it's one of the biggest that we've ever seen for this ETF. And keep in mind, this is happening as gold is rallying. So people are buying Bitcoin essentially as, you could either view it as they're buying it as a risk-off asset because people are buying gold and they're also buying Bitcoin. Or you could even view it as sort of an asset that they're buying, expecting the Fed to sort of start pumping money back into the economy. So anyway, there's multiple ways to view it, but it's bullish nonetheless. We've also got the Fed announcing that banks can now custody crypto. And also the Federal Reserve announced that the withdrawal of guidance for banks related to their crypto asset and dollar token activities. So there's a bunch of things that they've announced there. But regardless, banks can now get involved in the crypto industry with their clients. And that opens up a lot of capital that can get exposure now to this asset class. You can now pay for, as far as I'm aware with this one, you can now pay for things in iOS apps with crypto. So I'm going to assume they've done some sort of stablecoin partnership, which is very bullish. The long-short ratio hasn't been this low since the last bear market. Now, keep in mind, when you look at the lowest points of the long-short ratio, it doesn't necessarily tell you when the bottom is in, but it's telling you a rough idea of where you are in the market cycle. Right, so majority of these hitting the bottom periods of the long-short ratio is in really good value regions for buying Bitcoin for the long term. Like if you bought it on one of these peaks here, you're buying it maybe at like 20K, 25K Bitcoin, but now it's at 100K, it's a 4X. So it's a good value region. This data is the M2 sort of M2 money global supply, and it is a little overrated in its application, but I think it's useful to look at nonetheless. There was an interview that Howard Lutnick did with the Bitcoin magazine talking about America's plans with Bitcoin. And I don't want to obviously show you guys this 30, 40-minute interview, but it was really valuable. And I recommend that it was only 15 minutes, but I recommend you guys watch it. It was very valuable. And he basically talks about how a lot of the, I guess you could say, a lot of the positive things that they were going to do in relation to Bitcoin are put on pause while they sort out the tariff stuff. And he basically said that once Trump has, dealt with the whole tariff situation with China, he's going to come back and start working on the Bitcoin side of things again. So it was just a very bullish video overall for the 4-year administration that they'll be having. Now, this one was technically bearish, where Arizona governor basically vetoed a bill for Arizona to take money that they've seized from hackers or criminals and buy Bitcoin with it. He basically vetoed that decision and said you can't do it. But I view the veto as a positive because even when ETFs were getting applied for, they had to get denied multiple times before they got approved. So I view the denial process as the beginning of the process to getting accepted, right? These bills are very rarely going to get accepted on the first go around. You need to push multiple times. And I think that this situation is no different. So I view it as bullish, and it's just beginning that no, yes, period. And also we have more and more institutions viewing Bitcoin as a strategic asset to sort of hold on their balance sheets. We can see all the stuff that MicroStrategy has been doing with acquiring Bitcoin on their balance sheets. I think the other company is called Strike that's also doing this. Tesla holds some. Block, formerly Square, holds some. Galaxy Digital. And yeah, you can see here other companies worldwide have made headlines by strategically allocating significant portions of their capital to Bitcoin, solidifying their perception as a crucial hedge against growing global economic uncertainties and an effective store of long-term value. So with all that being said, Bitcoin looks good. We have potentially a really good setup happening with lower interest rates and QE created by the second and third order consequences of the tariff situation. And I just want to take a side point to talk about altcoins for a second. Altcoins, like Bitcoin, are not driven by growth of the economy and all these different things. It's not driven by innovation or productivity gains. Altcoins are purely driven by three things: an increasing risk tolerance of those inside and outside the crypto casino, the existence of a house money effect that drives speculative flows up the risk curve as they've had easy wins on the majors and they've made money, and also monetary debasement making people wealthy on paper. All of these things are sort of tied together, but they're all very relevant to keep in mind. That is the driver of altcoins. And when you think about it, what increases the risk tolerance of people outside of crypto? Well, if the Fed begins lowering rates and starting QE, that's going to pump the stock market. That's going to increase people's sort of risk appetite. And also, if interest rates are lower, there's less and less of a reason to be sort of trying to lend money to get a yield, because the yield you're getting is less. And that's going to drive capital to flow back into risk assets, chasing a yield, right? If you can only get a 1% interest rate, right, by lending money, you get 1% back a year because interest rates are so low. You're not going to make any money by lending money. You're going to not even outperform inflation, right? There's no real return then. And in that scenario, the only way to grow your capital is to put it in risk assets, so things like crypto and stocks. So in the natural transition of a lot of capital to taking on more risk is give them less safe alternatives, right? And that happens through lower interest rates. Now, the existence of a house money effect, well, that just comes from Bitcoin going up, which is caused by monetary debasement, increasing liquidity, et cetera, as we already talked about, right? And also QE the QE that they did in COVID was basically giving people free money, and that made people feel wealthy on paper, because giving out free money to people makes everyone feel rich, and maybe they are temporarily richer. But because people all have more money on average and they're spending more money, then it does create inflation, right? And then that makes people feel poor. So over the next 6 to 12 months, maybe even sooner, the market will potentially offer a life-changing opportunity to position in altcoins. In fact, some of them over the next month might be a good opportunity as well. I'm not necessarily saying wait for the crash before buying. I'm saying that doesn't matter if it's a crash or not, the opportunity to the upside very soon is going to be very good, in my opinion. And so for those who are patient, well-researched, investing with conviction, doing everything you should be doing in crypto, you'll be getting incredible entries into the right coins before they go 10, 100x. So again, whether you have a $10,000 or you've got $500,000, I think if you make a couple massive plays that are relatively passive in terms of how you buy them, you can make life-changing money. And I want you to have that mindset shift. Like, I think a lot of people think the bull run is going to end really soon. I think it's going to go longer than you think, in my opinion. So definitely feel like you should be making that mindset shift, and don't focus on what gains you've missed. Focus on maximizing every day that remains in the bull market, because I think we still got quite a bit of time to go. And yeah, the asymmetric bet is clear. Bitcoin dominance falling as we see an increase in people taking risks. Altcoin market caps expanding disproportionately, and capital will cascade into alts. So what should you be focusing on? I've sort of said this a lot of times, but I'm going to repeat it again. I think it's memes and AI. So why meme coins? Historically, it's always the best performing sector every cycle. At the end of a bull run, the best sector is always meme coins. Second point, it's the main sector. The main sector for a cycle tends to stay the main sector. So for example, last cycle was NFTs. NFTs throughout the entire cycle went through many peaks and troughs, but it was sort of always the dominant sector, right? For whatever is the thing in a cycle tends to stay the thing for that cycle. And obviously, what has the thing been this cycle? It's been meme coins. Also, it's easy for the masses to understand. crypto has embraced the nihilism thesis that all of crypto is a scam anyway, right? So people just think that crypto is a scam, and they buy meme coins as a way to just bet on what makes money. There's also a lack of compelling innovations. So there's really not many options for fundamental backed investments. I mean, realistically, if you want to bet on the fundamentals of crypto, you buy Bitcoin. And you buy anything else, you're sort of betting on a dream. And most of those, 90% of those dreams, 95% of those dreams never turn out into anything. And also, crypto is a casino, right? People buy whatever seems like will make them the most money. And if meme coins have historically been the best thing, they're going to probably go back to what was the best thing. And also, meme coins have the advantage of having the best structured token launches. So if you want to think about which sector gives retail the best opportunity, which is the best casino, it's got to be meme coins. Because if you view it from the perspective of a casino, right? In a casino, there's multiple different machines. They have different colors, different sounds, different shapes, different sort of patterns, and different sort of like identities, I guess you could call it. Like one machine is gold and it's Chinese themed, and another is like horse themed, right? They're all just trying to attract you with different strategies. And the same thing happens in crypto. So you've got the gaming casino where you're sort of trying to buy into a game. It has all of this like, wow, imagine if the game gets 1 billion users, on-chain economy, blah, blah. And then you've got the meme coin casino. And the meme coin casino is the equivalent of the shiniest, loudest, and most popular machine in a casino. And when there's no one in the casino, that machine obviously isn't used, it goes quiet. But as soon as people come back to the casino, if that machine is still the brightest, loudest, most popular one that people want to play, it's the best machine, they're going to go back to it. And I think if you look at the crypto casino and you look at all the different games that people can play right now, whether it's AI coins or whatever it is, I think meme coin is the best casino and AI is the best casino, right? Because AI has the advantages, which we'll talk about now, of the exponential innovation of artificial intelligence and how that's sort of impacting the world. So AI is probably the biggest technological innovation we're seeing now. And the next big technological innovation is going to be sort of physical AI through humanoids. And so if you think about which tech innovation in the world is going to occupy the largest amount of people's mind share, what are people going to be thinking about the most on a day-to-day basis? It's AI, it's robotics, it's related to this topic. And what that means is there's an infinite amount of mental mind share, which can translate into token demand, right? And also, exponential growth means something is growing faster than it grew previously. So things don't just grow, they grow faster. It's growth exponential, if that makes sense. And that's sort of hard for the human mind to comprehend. So I think the market is not at all pricing in how fast something can grow faster than it has before. And also, when you think about a sector that has so much mind share, billions of people thinking about it, and then you think about how much investable options you've got, you really don't have many things that you could buy in AI. Like if you want to invest in the next big AI startups, what do you buy? Well, you've got Tesla, you've got Nvidia, you've got a couple other robotics related companies, and then you've got a bunch of private companies which you can't buy. And then you've got a bunch of AI startups raising money, which you can't invest in because you're not an accredited investor. So then where do you go? Well, that's where crypto comes in, right? Crypto gives billions of people who can't buy the latest and greatest AI startups while they're small, before they go 100x, the ability to, through betting on crypto equivalents. Okay? So whatever the narrative is in AI, whether it's AI agents, robotics, whatever it is, you're going to be able to, people are going to be launching projects in that narrative within crypto that you're going to be able to invest in. Okay? And that is the biggest bull case, in my opinion, that AI has over meme coins. So again, visualize in your mind a casino. You've got this machine with cool lights. You got this one with loud sounds, and it's got a cool aesthetic, right? The AI machine has a sound that the meme coin one can't do. It has a certain lighting that just brings people in, right? So there is an advantage that AI has that meme coins don't. However, I think they're both going to be the best performing sectors. And I've been saying this for ages. And look at what the market's telling you. What are the best two performing sectors since the bottom? Well, it's meme coins and AI. I never tell people to buy gaming, never tell people to buy DeFi, never tell people to go all in on layer ones. Never tell people to really buy layer twos either, to be honest. And those are all underperforming. AI and meme coins are the best performing. So let's do a little summary. Bitcoin's at 94K. Bitcoin dominance is continually increasing. We're at step 4 of the 10 steps. AI and meme is going to be the best sectors. They're showing relative strength as well. And it's a sign of things to come. Institutional adoption is accelerating. Tariff, second and third order consequences yet to appear, could have massive implications. Could be a black swan event. All signs pointing to recession later this year, likely beginning of QE, lower rates leading to alt season. That's just a little summary. And here's the truth. Because of how I am able to predict things ahead of time, year after year, we've been able to prove we're ahead of the curve and now turn dollars into profit, right? When I make a video saying Toshi's the next 100x coin, then it goes 200x, right? But it took a lot of study to get to that point, to be able to accurately know enough about the future that you can make money from it. And look, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing repeatedly, expecting different results. And for so many of you guys watching this, that's your approach to investing in crypto. Getting in too late, buying the wrong coins, rotating into poverty, and repeat. Most people, they get into crypto during a bull run, they make money, they lose money as the bear market begins, and then they leave. And they leave for the quiet periods. And then they come back when the market's pumping 4 years later during the next bull run, and they do it again. And they just repeat this cycle again and again and again, never actually studying during the bear market, which is where all the lessons are learned to give you the ability to even keep the money that you make in a bull run. And most of you have probably been through, if you're watching this, you've probably been through a couple cycles, right? I doubt there's any of you here who are very new to crypto joining at this point, right? You've been through at least a couple cycles probably. And most of you haven't made life-changing wealth. I mean, I just did the study at the start of this, the questionnaire at the start of this webinar. Most people are at break even or haven't even, or they've lost money, right? Only one dude has made life-changing wealth that I saw put the number 5 of like 200 people watching, which is pretty crazy. And as you've seen, cycles have gotten progressively harder. It's getting harder and harder to navigate crypto alone. In 2017, you didn't really need a mentor. You could literally buy anything and make money. The dumber you were, the more you made. But the market's changed. Like I said, alt seasons are not like they used to be. They're rotational games where you have to pick the right sector, get in at the right time, get out at the right time, and then not buy that coin back because it doesn't perform well, and then stay away from that sector when it goes to shit, and then again find another good sector to then make money again, right? So it's an actual difficult game now. Long are the days that you could just buy a coin and make money. So as it stands, you've got 2 ways to make money. If you're watching this webinar, you can either follow the pro or you can become the pro. I say this a million times. This is still what is true. You either follow someone who's pro and you follow every exact move that they do, or you just do everything yourself. You become someone who can make their own money, generate their own alpha. And most of you will spend years trying to profit off of this market and continually swing and miss. So if you're sick and tired of watching those people get rich in the market and want to finally seize the opportunity, because right now is one of the better opportunities to get allocated, let's talk about how you and I can do this together. So all it takes is a couple wins, a couple big plays to make life-changing money. If you just had one big play a year, you're done. That's all you need, right? Crypto is the highest risk-to-reward casino that exists. But when you have an edge on the rest of the players, aka you get to follow the pros, here's what's possible, right? I've had multiple millionaire success stories of guys who come to me and they make millions of dollars with minimal time investment, right? There's just a bunch of examples here. These are also on my Mastermind site, right? The reason most people can't get these results is one of these 5 reasons, or most of all of these 5 reasons. Information overload. There's just so many influencers, so much information everywhere. Markets are 24/7. There's so many tokens, so many sectors, so many new tokens popping up. They're all moving at different times. It's just chaos, right? And most people scam you. Most coins rug. How do you know what to buy? There's minimal time. People are busy. They've got careers, businesses, family to take care of. They don't care about crypto that much to really obsess over it. They want to go play sports. There's just no time. And then on top of that, there's mistimed entries and exits. So most people find something that goes up. They buy it a little bit late, makes them some money, but then it goes down again. And then they panic sell the bottom. They get greedy at the top, right? They're just a victim of the market cycle. And then there's sector rotation blindness. So by the time you find a sector, it's too late. So you never find a sector early enough to make money from it, right? And also people find a sector that's been performing well and they think it's just going to perform well for the whole year, and then it doesn't. Like there was a guy on Twitter who basically posted Pengu and Hype outperforming, and he was like, these are going to be the best 2 tokens for 2025 to outperform the market. And he was basically just attributing that because for 1 month they were outperforming. When in reality, there's no coins that are going to outperform the whole market for an entire year. There is simply not a coin can simply just not hold attention for an entire year to outperform the market the entire time. Attention is becoming more scarce. Everyone's getting a shorter attention span. So the amount of time that each individual sector goes up is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So people just, they have sector rotation blindness. They think they can just buy a coin and then that's done, right? Obviously, you buy it and you hold it for multiple months, but you have to know when to get out. And then there's misaligned strategies, buying a coin for the long term, but then you sell it because you think it's going to go 20% lower, right? You sell to buy it back lower, right? It's just misaligned strategies. Long-term holds require long-term holds. And I know for a fact, because of the answers that you guys gave, most people bought high caps too late. So they bought they bought Giga or SPX, whatever the coins are, too late. Most people missed sector rotations entirely, so they just focused on the wrong narratives. They got into them too late. Most people sized positions incorrectly, so they went too small on the winners, too large on the losers. I had this problem when I started. For my first 3 years, I did this all the time. Most people bag held down 90% or even worse. Most people lost capital chasing mid-tier opportunities. So most people aren't actually able to recognize what is a really good opportunity and what isn't. So they just stuck chasing mid opportunities and getting mid results. If you do not fix all of the problems that I've just outlined, you will never make millions. And you can see that in the data set where basically nobody watching this webinar has made life-changing money. Whereas all of you have spent a bunch of time learning crypto, all of you have bought a bunch of different coins, all of you have tried, but none of you basically have made life-changing wealth, right? Because none of you picked 5, except for like one dude and me. So if you don't fix all these problems, you're not going to make millions. Simple as that. So if you're able to stack a decent amount of cash over the next 6 to 12 months, buy in the right coins at the right times, hold for the 2026 bull run, or even, might be even end of this year. I think there's no reason you can't become a millionaire, assuming, of course, you can mitigate all of this stuff. Now, as you probably know, I run a private mastermind community where I work one-on-one with every member to help them make their first million or even beyond that from crypto. I give them the exact strategies I'm following, that I'm implementing, including 100x meme coin plays, airdrop farming, long-term investing, stock investments, which is a new thing that I'm doing, and more. Okay, so what if you could tap into the combined experience of 4 proven 7-figure crypto traders / investors between all of us in the mastermind that are analysts? We've made over $30 million. And that's not, we had 30 million at one point. That's right now, 30 million plus. Have your portfolio professionally structured one-on-one with me to maximize for alt season capture. Access to all the alpha my analyst team and I find with easy to follow signals for 100x meme plays, and the in-house long-term investing system, which is super simple to follow. And you can reduce the time investment to 5 hours a week on your crypto investments with minimal thinking required, right? 5 hours a week, I say. How is that possible? With 5 hours a week, you can allocate early to the next 10 to 100x altcoins during an alt season without needing to have a ton of experience or skill. The way you do it, essentially, is you work alongside a pro like me in the mastermind, someone who's been in the market for years, made a bunch of money, and can tell you exactly the best moves to be making. So instead of spending all your time on Twitter, trying to find coins, trying to figure out when to buy, trying to avoid make all the hundreds of mistakes that you could be making that we just listed before, instead of that, you just do what someone else that is already done thousands of hours of learning, who's already made millions, you just do what they say to do. You take out the thinking, you take out the time investment, and you just copy them. And you outperform 95% of investors essentially effortlessly. All while you have time to focus on your business, your career, and your family. So the solution, like I said, myself and my 3 other analysts work together to find you the best altcoins and alpha to profit from. Takes all the guesswork out of your portfolio so that you can focus on your life. And this is how you get the upside of crypto, of an alt season, of a bull run, while skipping out on 90% of the pitfalls that kills beginner gains, right? The mastermind is the difference between you being by yourself, making money, but then losing it all, or you working in the mastermind, making money and keeping it. Because keeping it is the most important part. So again, the way that this is given to you in the solution is you get a full course that I've created, which explains the blueprint to get to your first million or beyond from crypto with minimal time investment. There's automated airdrop farming through opportunities like Abstract. That's one we're doing at the moment. The Hunter Algo investing system, which is the most accurate algorithm in crypto to buy at the bottom or buy near the bottom, sell near the top for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other large assets. All the free money opportunities that I find, so things like the Blur airdrop, different pre-sales, IEOs, different things like that. A community of crypto investors who are all working on the same thing, the same goal as you. Also, there's a number of experts within my network that are all within the mastermind that I run that you can sort of communicate with. And then obviously the 10-100x coins that we find from AI in the meme coin sector. Now, the only time I ever do these like special deals is during these live events. So I am doing another one. Assuming you've been listening to this whole webinar, you'll get to know that I am doing a discount. And I'm opening up 7 spots in my mastermind for people who want to sort of have this discount. And it is a one-time only discount. I'm only offering it for the next couple of days for anyone who's watched the webinar. So normal price for the mastermind is $8,500 a year, but it's $7,000 for a year. So around 20% off roughly for the VIP and also for the inner circle. And that's something that we'll talk about more later. That's another level of the mastermind. And payment links are going to be dropped in the chat now for anyone who is interested. And if you want to pay with crypto, you can message me directly on Telegram at that Telegram name that you see on the screen. And my team can get you situated on that before the spots run out. But yeah, there's 7 spots for 20% off anyone who's interested. And yeah, instead of, going further into, don't miss out on all the money you could make. Let's just go straight to the logic. I can show you dozens of people just like you who were struggling in crypto, who didn't make money, who joined the mastermind and then had the entire process of crypto simplified. I mean, there's one guy in the mastermind, one of my best students, he's a doctor and he has made millions from crypto. He literally is a full-time doctor. He does not have any time for crypto. He doesn't give a fuck about crypto. He outperformed 99% of people, which is completely insane to me. Time investment does not equal profits in crypto if you follow the right person. And look, it ended up being the best thing that could have happened to them and this guy specifically. All of my members who've joined the mastermind realize this. You know what, Daniel? I don't really know what I'm doing. Realistically, I haven't made life-changing money from this bull run. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never hit it big on my own, and I want to. I want to make that first million. I want to do it properly. So instead of me spending thousands of hours in the trenches, looking at the screens all day, I would rather just focus on my business and career, focus on my personal life, do crypto on the side. I don't even want to deal with crypto anymore. You do all the hard work for me. Just tell me when to buy and sell. I just want to do it in the sort of lazy man way, which is, a very, very valid way to do it. Just tell me what to do, right? And this is how it's worked out for them, right? There's a bunch of just different results that members have gotten. And also the past testimonials that you saw with the videos. I don't want to read over all the testimonials, but you can see them on the screen. So making your first couple million in crypto is like getting to a destination 1,000 miles away. It took me 4 years to make my first mil. And think about all the hours I put in the first 4 years. That definitely felt like a 1,000-mile walk. And I think most investors are figuratively hiking there barefoot with no map and no hiking experience. And to be honest, that's what I did for my first 4 years. I was mostly hiking 1,000 miles, taking a very slow path. I did join a couple groups, but I really didn't take it as seriously as I could. But I didn't have the advantage of capital. I was very poor. I was very broke with my crypto at the start. And yeah, what are the odds that you get there alone? Not very great. If I think about all the guys that I knew getting into crypto when I got into it and how many of them actually made money, basically none of them. So I guess with the mastermind, the way you can view it then is, imagine I gave you a first class ticket to the same location. Would you take it? And yeah, if you hike by yourself, you can come to me and say, Daniel, look, I didn't need your help. Didn't need to pay you. I made it there by myself. I'm so cool. Cool. Well, if you achieve that, good for you. But you can just shortcut the process and get there quicker if you work alongside a team of pros. So that's who it's for. That's who the mastermind's for. So if you don't want to fumble generational wealth, lose your sanity looking at crypto all day, get confused on what actually to buy, but you still want to make insane gains from the market. You want exposure to the best wealth creation vehicle of the past decade. You want to make it this cycle instead of waiting years to become the pro yourself. The mastermind is for you. All it takes is a couple home runs. Toshi made me 400K roughly. That's one meme coin play. And then Solana, multiple 7 figures from that. Like 2 plays, boom, you're there. And yeah, you're not guaranteed to make 7 figures if you join the mastermind. That's not the point. You still have to be somewhat attentive, actually action the signals that I give. You have to put in a couple hours a week. There's actually a little bit of time investment. Not much, but there is a little bit. Right? But it is significantly less than you would be doing by yourself. And someone who's helped dozens of people basically sleepwalk their way to 7 figures inside of the mastermind, making a couple of strategic bets and doing nothing after, being inside of the mastermind raises your odds of success in this market drastically. So what are the requirements? You need to have 10K in investing capital after you join. You need to have 5 hours a week of free time to action the information. You got to be 18 years old. If you're younger than 18, you can message me. Maybe there's an exception, but generally speaking, got to be 18. And you got to have a basic understanding of crypto. You can't have no knowledge. You got to have at least the basics. So, if you want expert insights handed to you daily, spoon-fed free money opportunities left and right, access to a much higher level of alpha compared to what you're going to find online in free groups and Twitter, access to me and my expert analyst 24/7, dedicated portfolio review from me, tons of sharp investors analyzing the market at all times and sharing information, and much more, then you will want to be inside of the mastermind. But yeah, let's just answer some FAQs before we get into the questionnaire, because I'm going to be doing a live Q&A after this. So what's the difference between Mastermind and Inner Circle? So I have the Mastermind, which has two sort of levels. There's the regular access and the Inner Circle access. Inner Circle is if you want to be in a group chat with me, you, and my head analyst, and you want to just basically invest 30 minutes a week, right? And you want it to be like told exactly what to do. The Mastermind regular is more, we tell you, we build your portfolio and there's still signals, but it's done within a group with other people. So it's 5 hours a week instead of like half an hour a week time investment. How do the signals look in a group? Very simple. You get told what the coin is, where to buy it. There's a tutorial on how to buy it. You get told like what region to buy it in. You get told how risky it is. You get given the full thesis. I usually do videos with a full thesis on the coin. And it's explained all very simply in a room that only I talk in. What actually comes inside of the Mastermind, we sort of covered that before, but it's a course that's hosted on School, which is 40 hours long. It's a series of Telegram rooms structured in a way to make it as simple to follow and easy to follow as possible. There's also a course, another separate document that I have on Notion with a bunch of information there. There's also the TradingView algorithms if you want access to that, where you can actually have access to my investing system on TradingView and you can look at it yourself. And then there's, one-on-one conversation with me with my personal Telegram account too. How does the investing system actually work? The main system is the Hunter algorithm. It's an algo that I built 3 years ago that I've been using since. It's still the main system that I use because it's the best one. I've got 2 full-time devs that continually work on it with me to make sure it's as good as it can possibly be. And that basically dictates the decisions that we make for our long-term portfolio for Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, and different assets that are correlated to the movements of Bitcoin. Who are my analysts? If you go onto the Mastermind website, it actually specifies who the analysts are, and I can show you guys here. So because I have worked with Andrew Tate, Iman Gadzhi, and Luke Belmar closely, I have a network with basically all of the best guys in crypto that are the best at investing, the best at trading, and different things. I've met many of them. I have a very, very good level network because of the fact that I know the top guys in the online business space and the people that they work with, right? And I have recruited the best ones that I've come across that I've been friends with for multiple years to be analysts within the Mastermind. So you can see Erebos is the first one, Josh is the second one, and Migs is the third one. There's a whole introduction on them. I don't want to get into it here, but there's a whole introduction on what they bought that made them the millions, what their strategy is here, so you can learn about it on the Mastermind website. Will you actually look at my portfolio? Yeah, so when you join one-on-one, I work with you on the portfolio and we build that out. Cool. Now, if you are interested, but you're not ready to pull the trigger yet, you can book a call with my head analyst and you can talk with him directly and ask him any follow-up questions. You can maybe get some advice on if it makes sense for your situation to join. And there's a call, I'll drop a link in the chat, and you can book a call with my head analyst if you guys are interested to sort of talk to someone a little bit more before you decide to join. Now let's get into the live Q&A. So any questions related to crypto, the market, the Mastermind, anything on those topics, feel free to ask. I'm going to have a quick drink with my water, and I'm going to read through the chat. Cool. And you should, if you guys don't see the payment details and you are trying to find them, I can try to help out there too. But generally, if you have any questions, just let me know. I want to get back to giving you guys some alpha. All right. Where are these questions at? I'm trying to pull it up. I don't see any questions appearing. Okay, there we go. Questions are coming in. Do I still believe Solana based and abstract over 2 chains? What's 3 chains that you just mentioned are worth paying attention to? Or are there other lesser known ones you're excited about? So I would say the chains that I'm most bullish on are Solana and abstract. I think Base has cooked themselves. I think Base is cooked. Because of this whole like tokenize everything narrative, they've basically killed the ability for long-term tokens to survive on their platform because they've created an infinite amount of dilution where all the demand for betting on attention-based tokens is spread between a million different tweets and TikToks and different things that get turned into tokens. So if that narrative that they're trying to create kicks off, the only people who benefit from that are the people who create the token themselves. And no one is actually going to benefit from like holding any of this shit long term. It's basically like the trenches, but just even more fucked. Like in the trenches, a TikTok meme pops up and then it becomes a token, right? In this fucking tokenize everything base economy, something won't even be a meme and it will get tokenized. And it's going to be so shit. And I just am not really bullish on Base if this narrative kicks off. It's the gayest thing I've seen in crypto. I hate it. In regards to abstract, I think a lot of the demand for a Base alternative is going to flow over to abstract. Abstract hasn't even turned on the marketing yet. They have problems that they need to solve in terms of the liquidity pools and getting influencers on board, getting the live streaming platform ready. There's a bunch of things they're getting ready, and then they're going to kick marketing off. So when you think about it, the chain hasn't even really been pushed, and it's already as good as it is. So abstract has a lot coming for it soon. And with Base just killing themselves and being complete retards, all that second, to Solana sort of narrative is going to flow over to abstract. All that capital is going to flow over to abstract. And I think it's definitely going to be a place worth looking at. So yeah, I would only, if I was watching this, I'd only be focusing on Solana and abstract. And that's the only places I'm focusing. Okay, bunch of questions. Holy shit, let me go to the top. Okay. What are 3 low caps I will buy and hold during this market? I don't want to tell you guys all the coins I'm looking at, but at the moment, my favorite plays are Newt and Abster on abstract. So those are the 2 main memes I'm focused on. But yeah, I don't really want to give away too much sort of that on this call. But that's like the 2 favorite plays that I have at the moment. Okay. So the inner circle is much more expensive than the regular access, which is the 7,000 one that you guys saw on this thing. If there are people who are interested in that much higher tier, just message me on Telegram. It's the same contact that you see here somewhere. Where's my Telegram? Anyway, I don't see where it is. You can message me on Telegram if you know my Telegram. Thoughts on Hyperliquid? Yeah, look, Hyperliquid's still a decent play. I just think if we go into a risk-on market, an alt season and market, Hype is going to be the most boring thing. Coins like Hype do well when there's nothing else that's more exciting. So when I look at Hype, I see a token that is obviously really, really bullish. But when I look at what's coming for the market and I see like AI is going to make a comeback and meme coins are going to pop off, there's just going to be so many more. There's going to be so much more interesting coins to buy than Hype. Also, a change that I've made in my portfolio that I've told all the guys in the mastermind is I recommend if you buy something other than Bitcoin, make sure it's able to outperform Bitcoin by 3x, or it's just not even worth buying. Like I'm at the point now where I don't want to buy something which doesn't have a high chance of outperforming Bitcoin. Otherwise, I just hold Bitcoin. Like, what's the point? What's the point in holding anything else if it's not even going to outperform with a large degree of difference? Because when you think about it, right? Imagine you buy something and it outperforms Bitcoin by 2x, but it's also 2 times as volatile. So by the time the bull market's over and you're selling that coin, Bitcoin might be down 20% already, 15%. Your coin's down 30, 40%, right? Every percent that Bitcoin then goes down further into the bear market is another 5% that the altcoin, or 3% that the altcoin is going down. And so, yeah, you made more money when it went up, but by the time you sell it, you're not going to sell a top. So by the time you sell it, it's probably down more, and it might have even lost the outperformance that it made against Bitcoin. So it's just really tricky to outperform Bitcoin on something that doesn't outperform it significantly, because you don't have much difference in the performance, but you have a massive increased risk on the downside, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So someone asked about Abstract, already answered it. Casper, no. Casper sucks. Fuck Casper. Will there be a bigger discount? No. No. What do you mean? That is a big discount. There's no more bigger discount. Okay, the memecoin syndicate, that's a $100 a month group that I run, which is more for dudes who want to be spending all day looking at the charts. If you could see yourself spending 8 hours a day trading meme coins, the memecoin syndicate is for you. If you don't see that, then don't join that. Could I see a lower low in SPX this summer, but a pristine Bitcoin? I think what would drive the stock market lower is probably also what would drive Bitcoin lower. So my base case would be that if the stock market is dropping because of the sort of reemergence of the tariff problems, Bitcoin would also drop, but it would probably drop not as much. I think it would be up against the SPX. I think Bitcoin versus SPX is going to keep going up because the downside driver of the SPX is actually an upside driver of Bitcoin, because the tariff situation leads to the monetary and fiscal stimulus that is good for Bitcoin more than it is good for stocks. That's at least my take on it. Am I invested in Brett? No, I don't own any Brett. Does paying for the Mastermind get you the memecoin syndicate? Yeah, you get it for free. Will I ever give a slightly more affordable option for the Mastermind? No, I will not. What happens if we do go into a recession? Like I said, I already talked about what would happen if we go into a recession. Any good beta plays on Abstract? Already spoke about those. Memecoin Syndicate, already spoke about that. Like I said, the difference between the Syndicate and the Mastermind is the Memecoin Syndicate is just purely like new launch meme coins if you want to stare at a screen 8 hours a day. But if you want to do like what we talked about in this video, hands-off, simple, low-skill crypto investments, then you want to be in the Mastermind. No, the calls in the Syndicate are different to the Mastermind. GameFi, nah. I think, okay. Abstract is really pushing the GameFi narrative hard on their chain, and Abstract does have a game coming soon, which probably will be massive, called monsters.fun. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but it's coming soon to Abstract. And I think gaming potentially on Abstract could be big, but I wouldn't be looking at gaming on any other chain. I don't think gaming is good because of the gaming element. I think the gaming is just good because it's on Abstract, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's worth looking at, monsters.fun. Do I hold any Toshi? No, I will never buy Toshi again. How long is the membership? 12 months. Can you pay in USDT on Solana or Solana? Yeah, you can pay in those. Is Doge or Shiba a good investment? No. Why would you buy that? Like I said, if your coin can't outperform Bitcoin by 3x, which Doge won't, it can't, then don't buy it. So Doge, why would you buy that? Doesn't make sense. Did Alex Becker scam everyone with the gaming narrative? Well, you have to think about what is the definition of scam. Did he take your money and not give you something in return? Well, he didn't sell anything besides a membership, but the membership was not promising gains. He basically gave his opinion on what would go up, and it sort of went up a little bit, but he missed out on the whole memecoin AI sector. And he only makes money on gaming if his pre-sale bag goes up. So I don't think he scammed you, but I think Alex Becker just is not a good investor. He's a business owner who has a great network and he can make money for crypto through utilizing his network, but he's not a good investor. He's good at a couple things. Like he bought the bottom, I remember, on Solana and stuff during a crash. So he's good at like countering the herd, I think a little bit, but he lacks a lot of like investor principles that would make him a good investor. And he's just, he's not worth following. So I think the bottom is in or still 60 days out. There is a chance the bottom is in. I think we might get a double bottom crash potentially, or a little bit of a lower low fake out if we see the second and third order consequences of tariffs, but we don't necessarily need to make lower lows. How do you find abstract? Bit confusing on CoinMarketCap. Well, there's no token for abstract yet. So you're going to have to just type in abstract chain and it will come up. Paul Atkins. Yeah, that's bullish. Yeah, Paul Atkins is bullish Bitcoin, so he's good. Any AI alts to look into or that you're going to look into? I mean, I think a lot of the stuff in the AI sector that is going to perform well is just a token that's not even out yet. Like the best tokens there aren't out yet because AI is moving so quick that the next narrative is going to pop up in 3-6 months that people didn't even consider. And then there's going to be a whole suite of tokens, I would assume, that come out in relation to that. So I think AI is just that early that the best tokens aren't even out yet. And that's just how I'm playing it at the moment. All right, I might do a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. What would be the possible airdrop for gold level on ABS? I don't know. Dude, like it's hard to estimate that shit. But if you look at the numbers on abstract, it does look very promising for the airdrop. What's my honest feeling about Ripple? Look, like I said, you want to buy something that can 3x outperform Bitcoin, or you may as well just hold Bitcoin. Like, what is the fucking point of buying something that's just going to do what Bitcoin did? Like, why? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I just buy Bitcoin or buy something that can 10x. If your coin can't 10x, don't bother. Like, this middle ground is just super gay. Like, just stop playing the middle ground. Like, barbell. Low risk, high risk. Don't fuck around with this middle shit. Unless you can like swing like a mid risk and capture a 2x in like a couple months because of insider information or something. Not insider, but like, you know, because of good information that you have. Unless you can do that, just don't bother. Okay, that's the last question I'm going to answer, guys. We're going to wrap it up here. 7 spots for the mastermind. If you would like to take a spot, there's still some available. You can apply, or not apply, you can pay through the link that you're going to see in the chat comments of this webinar. If you want to pay with crypto, you can just message me on Telegram. The contact's there as well in the chat. You can ask to pay with crypto. If you want to book a call, you can book a call with my head analyst. He will be able to answer any questions and just check if it's good for you to join. He's not a sales guy. He's not a closer. He's not a sales dude. He's just my head analyst. So you can just talk to him like a regular person, ask questions, blah, blah. Again, capital requirements. You need 10K to join after the fee. You need 5 hours a week. You need to be 18. You need to have basic understanding of crypto. Really not that hard of a requirement to meet, but if you meet that, I'm happy to have you as a member. And once you join, we're going to work one-on-one to basically get you set up for what's coming in the bull run. I'm going to build you a portfolio that's going to make you your riches. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Going to wrap it up here. And yeah, I hope to see some of you guys inside of the Mastermind. So cheers.